We're talking about something that could affect half of America. That means you. Hundreds of thousands of children are winding up at the hands of their abusers, and family courts are missing this.
There are a lot of judges who've never practiced family law who take the bench.
You need expert eyes on these children. A judge is not a doctor.
Do judges listen?
Not a lot of the time they don't.
Why?
They don't want to believe it, and they want to give that parent another chance, but that one chance is when that kid could die.
My two protectors should have been my mom and dad, but they were both fighting in family court, so I was caught in the middle of it with my siblings. We were on our own. Me and my siblings definitely felt helpless. We felt like we had no power.
You know, the children get caught in the middle of this. They pick up the tab for the parents' fight. And RJ says he was collateral damage of a broken system that failed him. And we're going to meet he and his mother later and find out why the judge on their case sent his mother to jail. But first, I sent former Los Angeles criminal prosecutor and now our co-anchor of News on Merritt Street, Lonnie Coombs, on an assignment she says she is very passionate about. Is Lady Justice failing families throughout America?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Phil. You know, we see these appalling headlines. A Colorado mom suspected of killing her two kids. She was days away from losing them to her ex in a custody battle. A divorced father allegedly sets his home on fire, killing his 3 children inside while their mother was at work. A mom, in the midst of a custody battle, drowns her kids in a murder-suicide. But you know, Dr. Phil, as horrific as these headlines are, they still don't give the full story.
Every 6 days, a child dies amid custody fights and family court lapses. Even more sobering, since 2008, 984 children were killed by a parental figure. Family courts involved in these cases often miss the signs of trouble. Research suggests that the emphasis on prioritizing parental visitation, even in cases where abuse is present, put kids at risk. Kids become pawns in a divorce tug-of-war. Every year, 58,000 children sent pursuant to a custody order or for unprotected visitation end up with abusers. In fact, nearly half of custody evaluators still recommend unsupervised visits despite reports of family violence. In 2020, more than 588,000 kids were victims of abuse or neglect. In 2019, more than 672,000 kids spent time in foster care in the U.S., and statistics suggest that about 1/3 of the children placed in foster care are abused. All of this is evidence that the system meant to protect our kids is broken.
Well, those numbers are shocking. What it amounts to is the fact that hundreds of thousands of children are winding up at the hands of their abusers, and family courts are missing this. Sometimes they're complicit in turning these children over to the abusers when they have evidence right in front of them that they're abusers. Now, Lonnie headed back to the courtroom to find out why 2 fathers say their battle for their children was like facing off with an organized crime syndicate.
Do you feel that the system in the family law courts is corrupt?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would say it's organized crime. It's like a mafia. I like to call it the state-sanctioned destruction of the family.
A parent can make a false allegation against the other one, and they immediately can go to court and get a protective order, restraining order based on that allegation. A lot of people call them silver bullets because it only takes one to basically win custody.
How much has this whole process ended up costing you financially?
2.5 years ago, I quit keeping track, and 2.5 years ago it was about $700,000. Overall, I lost about 3.5 years with my children.
We would like audio and video cameras added to the courtrooms, and we would like to lower the immunity barrier. Currently, judges have absolute immunity, and where there is no accountability, you're going to have corruption. Judges should actually be held to a higher standard instead of no standard at all.
Well, we have 3 high-powered pros here tonight who know how to navigate around the family courtroom and the legal system in general. Joining Lonnie, our Michigan Circuit Court Judge Rosemarie Aquilina. She presides over family and criminal court cases. She was a family law attorney for 20 years, and also Dr. Charles Sophie. He has been an expert on my show and a member of my Blue Ribbon Advisory Board for a number of years. He is a psychiatrist, former medical director of the Los Angeles County Department of Child and Family Services. He's triple board certified. Now, I've been talking about the fact that the family court system is broken. Judge, am I right?
You're right. There are a lot of judges who've never practiced family law who actually take the bench. And without that experience, they do a disservice. It takes a while to learn it. There are a lot of classes that should be offered and training, and so many cases before the family court bench should have been done by a lawyer before they become a judge. That doesn't happen. So there's a learning curve, and families get caught in it.
And Dr. Sophie, when you do a study, you'll send a social worker out to do a home study.
Yes.
You'll evaluate the parents.
Yes.
And people get confused. This isn't about who's the best parent. It's whether either parent is suitable, right?
Right, but it's also, is that child being abused or neglected? And that's what you need, expert eyes on these children. And in LA, we put a system together so those children are seen by expert eyes as they enter the system, by a mental health expert and a physical expert who can evaluate a bruise or evaluate the story so that they can give the judge the information. A judge is not a doctor.
Do judges listen?
No, not a lot of the time they don't.
Why?
Because they don't want to believe it sometimes. It's hard. They see a mother standing there saying, did you really hurt your kid? And they want to give that parent another chance, but that one chance is when that kid could die.
And Lonnie, you said half the time, even when they determine that there is abuse happening by a parent, they still award custody to that parent in unsupervised visitation.
Yeah, I really think that the system overall is failing the children. The basic rule of family law court is in the best interest of the child.
Right.
But what does that mean? How does that actually be enacted? And that's what we really need to look at.
Well, I'm trained in forensic psychology, and I've been appointed by the court a number of times. And if I didn't have a judge listening to what I said, I stood up and said, what the hell did you send me out there for if you're not going to listen to what I said? I've written a report and now you're going to just arbitrarily make a decision? I wasn't real popular with the judges when I did that. You have to have professionals that will stand up for their work, right?
Yeah.
You do, but not in every state. And we get experts when and if we need them. A lot of people can't afford, and the system's not built to pay for those expert opinions. And I want to talk about what you just said. It's in the best interest of the children, not the parents.
Right.
And the children really get lost in the system because judges don't spend enough time listening to the children. The children know what's going on, and because of age or other issues, they don't believe them. And so the children get caught in the middle.
Listening to the children and talking to the experts, that's where the judges should get their information.
Exactly.
Decision.
And when I was appointed, I saw myself in the role as an ad litem for the children. And I would say to the parent's lawyer, please cross-examine me.
Right.
Please cross-examine me, because you're not going to like the answers.
And cross-examination is the greatest truth teller. Cross-examination should occur every time.
Yeah, I invited it, and it usually went a lot shorter than they thought, because they started asking questions they didn't like the answer to. And there's like, I withdraw the question. No, you ask it, I'm going to answer it. All right, later tonight, we're going to meet a father who says CPS did nothing to help him when he discovered his daughter was locked in a basement 14 hours at a time.
I would describe the family court treatment of my mom as unjust. I was in my dad's custody for 5 years. When I would talk to my dad about wanting to live with my mom, he'd say he would rather send us to foster care. For periods of time, it was abusive. He would just start yelling at me and start getting physical, pushing and grabbing for the most part. And then he was also an alcoholic. So there were multiple nights where he'd drink too much and pass out. And there were a few nights where he forgot who we were. DCF had gotten involved in our case multiple times, and they ended up substantiating him for neglect, but that didn't change anything. before I ran away to live with my mom, he like verbally disowned me. He said, "You're not my son." And then after he had passed, I found out he wrote me out of the will. I have no relationship with my siblings. They had told me multiple times they resented me for leaving them behind, so I did feel guilt. I think the family court process has impacted me negatively in a lot of ways. I think it made me mature at a young age when I should have just been having fun as a kid. I think it caused a decent amount of trauma, and I think it also just gave me a lack of trust.
Did the judge ever sit down and talk to you?
No, never. For the most part, it would be GALs and therapists, and by the time I was 14, I had already ran away, so I wasn't involved as much.
But no officer of the court ever sat down with you and said, talk to me about what you want to do, what you think is going on, what's best in your life.
Outside of therapists and GALs, no.
Now, I know you. That'd be the first thing you'd do, right?
Absolutely. You have to give the children a voice.
You said the judge was biased against your mom. How do you know that?
Just some of the rulings she did when I was younger. She held my mom, and we were blackmailed by my father, and we were told she wouldn't be released until we went back with our dad.
But you only know that from what your mom told you.
No, there was a hearing that day. My mom got taken into police custody at the hearing. My dad and the GAL drove from Hartford to Glastonbury, which is like roughly 15 minutes away, came to the house because we were with her mom, staying with her, but she went to the hearing, and we were told that she wouldn't be released.
Judges don't just put people in jail. I suspect there was a contempt of court, perhaps for not returning the children or other behavior, and that's why she was put in jail. And it's sad to me that any of the kids know about the facts of this case, because the children should not be involved. This is a marriage that was dissolved between two adults, and they should both facilitate a positive relationship between the children and the other parent, and the children should not know what's going on in court. So I have a problem with that.
And you know, Dr. Phil, there's another professional in this mix, which is the children's social worker, who has a whole nother point of view. And that could differ or agree with the judge.
Right. And you mentioned GAL, that's guardian ad litem.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
And a guardian ad litem, by the way, is someone that is appointed by the court who has no duty to either parent whatsoever. They have an undivided loyalty to the child, supposedly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's the theory. And that's supposed to be the role of the Department of Child and Family Services
Right.
as well, right? To protect
Yes.
the interests of the
But
child.
oftentimes it's not,
Well,
unfortunately.
it's hard sometimes for them to serve that best interest, because if they take them out of the home and they can't go to another family member and they put them into foster care.
Right. But that's why I put a system in place. We don't take a kid out of a home until we have a real reason, an expert's opinion that it's abuse or neglect. Otherwise, if we break a family up, it's really difficult to get them back together.